Okay, so for my extension project, I chose factoring a trinomial into two binomials. So to start out, since we're factoring, we're going to put two parentheses. So when factoring, it's pretty much just getting back to the start of how you got this trinomial. So we're going to start with the first term, and we can see it's x to the second power, so we're just going to separate that into both of each binomial. And then we're going to move on to the next term, and actually we're going to skip this term and go to the third term, which is negative 15. And as we're going to look for how are all the ways we could get this number through multiplication. So out to the side here, we could have negative 15 times 1, or we could have 5 times negative 3. And these are the only two ways, obviously in opposites, but these are the only two ways we could get this number. So after looking at both the ways we could get this third term, we got to the side here and we find the sum of these two numbers. So the sum of negative 15 plus 1 is negative 14, and the sum of 5 minus 3 is 2. So after looking for each of the ways we could get this number, we calculate the sums of both of the multiplication, and we want it to equal this second term. So after we find that, so this is our equation that we've chosen because it equals the middle term. We go back and we plug these into our binomial, into each binomial. So we go back and we put plus 5 and minus 3. Okay, so for the second one, since we're doing the same thing, we're going to put the two parentheses. And again, here we have both the x's, so we're going to separate those. And we're going to skip the middle term, and we're going to go out to the third term. And all the possible ways we could get this, we're going to say negative 12 times 1, negative 3 times 4, negative 2 times 6. So then, after we find all the ways we can get negative 12, we're going to go out and we're going to add up the sum of these all of these numbers. So this would be negative 11, and this would be 1, and this one would be 4. So looking at all of our answers here, we need to go back to see what this number is, and right here, this is our equation that works for this. So obviously it equals 4, so then we're going to go back and we're just going to plug in these individual terms, and that'll be plus 6. And then for the third one, we're going to go back and put our parentheses and separate our x, skip the second term, and find all the possible outcomes for this third term, which that could be 8 times 2, 4 times 4, or 13 times 2. So we're going to go through and we're going to add. So this is 10, and this is 8, and this one equals 15. And so looking back again, this is 15 and this is also 15, so this has to be our correct equation. We're going to go through and we're going to put plus 13 and plus 2 because these are the individual terms that make up the two binomials. So then we're gonna go to number 4, and that's 2 parentheses again, and separate the x, and skip the middle one, which is -8, and move on to -20. So all the possible outcomes for -20 could be 20 times -1, or 5 times -4, or 2 times -10. And so going back again and adding up the sums of all of these numbers, this would be 19, this would be 1, and this would be -8. So again, this is -8, and this is also -8, so this is our proper equation to use, and you're just going to separate the terms out, which would be +2 and -10. And for the last one, put the parentheses again, and separate your x, skip your middle number, and move on to your third number. And all the ways you could get this would be -22 times 1, or 11 times -2. And so these both equal, this would be -21, and this would equal 9. So this is 9, and this is also 9, so this has to be our equation, and you just separate the terms, so this would be +11 and -2. Some ways you could possibly go wrong while doing this, I think, would be forgetting to skip the middle term, because our brains just automatically go from left to right and not realizing what you're doing. For me, that's where I get confused sometimes. And some ways these are used in real life would be when people go to get a mortgage. To calculate interest for a 30-year mortgage, they factor binomials. So that's it.